Hyacinth, the language of sincerity. Lila didn't expect him to come back so soon. It had only been a few days since Rowan had walked into her shop, and yet here he was again, standing at the door with a hesitant smile, his hands empty this time. The bell above the door jingled as he stepped in, this time looking a little different. The usual jacket had been replaced with a simple black sweater, and his eyes, though still tired, held something new, something softer. Lila looked up from arranging a bouquet of lavender, her fingers steady as she worked. She had learned to keep herself guarded, to not get attached to anyone who walked in with their heart full of expectations. Customers came and went, their flowers always the same, a symbol of something fleeting. But for some reason, she couldn't shake the feeling that Rowan was different. "Good morning," he said, his voice hesitant, as if testing the waters. "Back again for more flowers?" she asked, her voice neutral, though she couldn't help but notice the subtle change in his demeanor. He smiled, but it was a little sadder than before. "I thought maybe, this time, I could ask for something different." Lila raised an eyebrow, setting the lavender down as she turned her full attention to him. "Something different?" Rowan nodded, his gaze flickering toward the shelves of flowers around them. "Something that doesn't just say, 'I'm sorry' or 'I love you.' Something real." Her fingers froze for a moment, caught by the unexpected honesty in his words. For a moment, she didn't know how to respond. Was he really asking for something real? Or was this just another attempt to smooth things over in a relationship? That clearly wasn't working. "What are you looking for then?" she asked, her voice a little softer now. He paused, searching the shelves as if the answer was hiding among the petals and stems. Finally, he picked up a small bunch of hyacinths, deep purple and white, their fragrance filling the air with a delicate sweetness. "Hyacinth," he said, his voice quiet. "I've heard they mean sincerity. Maybe I need to learn how to be more sincere with myself." And with her, Lila stared at the flowers for a moment, the weight of his words sinking in. "Sincerity," she repeated, her voice almost a whisper. "It's not something you can buy. It's something you show." Rowan met her gaze, his expression vulnerable for the first time. "I know, but I'm trying to learn." Lila nodded, taking the hyacinths from him and wrapping them gently in paper. As she worked, her thoughts were a tangled mess. She didn't know what made her want to help him. After all, she'd seen this before, the hope, the desperation, the cycle that repeated over and over. But for some reason, with Rowan, it felt different. She wasn't sure if it was because of his sincerity or something deeper, something unspoken that lingered between them like an invisible thread. She handed him the bouquet, her fingers brushing his as she did. "Sincerity takes time," she said softly, "but sometimes it starts with a small gesture." Rowan's gaze lingered on her for a long moment, something unspoken passing between them. Then he smiled, that familiar warmth returning to his eyes. "I'll take your advice. Thank you, Lila." As he turned to leave, Lila couldn't help but watch him go. Something in her chest tightened, but she couldn't quite name the feeling. It wasn't just the hope that he'd find what he was looking for. It was the nagging thought that maybe, just maybe, he wasn't the only one who needed to be sincere. Hydrangea, unspoken sincerity. The day was bright but cold. Lila was arranging lavender flowers when she heard the familiar chime of the flower shop door. She didn't need to look up to know who had come in. Those footsteps were already familiar, calm, hesitant, but always returning. "Let me guess," she said without turning. "Still no idea what she wants?" Rowan chuckled softly. "You're getting good at reading minds." He approached Lila's work table, his eyes sweeping over the neatly arranged flower shelves. Today he looked a bit more relaxed, wearing a crumpled gray sweater and worn-out jeans. But his smile was the same, slightly awkward, a little too polite. "Want the usual bouquet?" Lila asked, reaching for ribbon and wrapping paper. Rowan shook his head. "I actually just wanted to look around. And maybe talk for a bit if you don't mind." Lila paused, then looked at him. "Talk?" "Yeah, about flowers," Rowan added quickly. "I mean, you always know what they mean, and I'm curious. Is that how you cope?" Lila froze for a moment, then pretended to busy herself with the eucalyptus leaves in her hands. "Flowers don't ask questions. They just grow and die. Simple. And you?" Rowan touched one of the hydrangea stems on the side table. "Do you believe in their meanings?" Lila looked at the flower. Hydrangea, sincerity that was never asked for. A bloom with wide petals and calming colors, almost like an unspoken apology. "I believe people are rarely truly sincere," she murmured. Rowan smiled, but there was sadness behind it. "My girlfriend said my flower hobby was a waste of time. When will you ever be successful from that?" she said. "And did you stop?" Rowan shook his head. "I stopped talking about it, but I still do it secretly. On my apartment balcony, one pot of lavender and one of marigold." Lila turned to him for the first time that day. There was something in Rowan's eyes that made it hard to look away. She took one stem of hydrangea and quietly added it to the bouquet she was arranging. Rowan noticed her gesture. "Does that mean I passed the test today?" Lila didn't answer, but when she handed him the bouquet, her eyes weren't as guarded as usual. "Don't tell her about the hydrangea," she whispered. "It's not for her." Forget-me-not, a gift from old wounds. Lila was watering the hanging plants in front of her shop when the sound of hurried footsteps echoed on the sidewalk. She turned and saw Rowan standing in the doorway, disheveled, breathless, his eyes slightly red. "Hey," he said, his voice hoarse. "Rowan?" Lila lowered her watering can. "What's wrong?" He chuckled bitterly. "An argument. A big one. Looks like we're done." Lila looked at him in silence for a moment, then opened the door wider. "Come in." The shop was quiet, the scent of roses and rosemary filling the air. Rowan sat in the chair near the counter, folding his hands and staring at them. "I knew our relationship was bad," he muttered. "But it still hurts when it finally ends." Lila took a cup of chamomile tea and set it in front of him. She hesitated for a moment, then pulled a chair and sat opposite him. It's never easy breaking up with someone, even when you know it's coming." Rowan looked up at her, his gaze softening. "Yeah, I guess I thought it would be easier, but it wasn't." They sat in silence for a few moments, the weight of the conversation hanging in the air. "Why don't you stay here for a bit?" Lila offered. "I can help you sort things out, or we'll just let you rest. I'm not going anywhere." Rowan's lips curled into a small, weary smile. "Thanks, I don't know what I'd do right now without a place like this to come to." Lila didn't respond right away. She simply watched him, her gaze softer than she intended, as if trying to understand the man sitting before her. She didn't know the details of his life, but she could see the strain etched on his face. The same strain that came from carrying too much on one's shoulders for too long. Suddenly, she winced slightly. "Are you hurt?" Lila asked quickly. "It's not me," he replied. "But you." He pointed at Lila's wrist, which was reddened from a rose thorn. "Oh, I didn't realize." She was about to grab a bandage from under the counter, but Rowan stood up first and helped her. "Let me do it," he insisted. His voice was softer now, gentler than it had been when he walked in. Lila, surprised by the tenderness in his tone, gave him a small nod and sat still, watching as he carefully wrapped the bandage around her wrist. His hands were warm and steady, and she couldn't help but notice how gently he handled her. It was a quiet intimacy, small but meaningful. As he finished, their eyes met briefly, and something unspoken passed between them. But neither of them said anything. Lila quickly shifted her focus back to the flowers. "Let's get those forget-me-nots arranged." They worked together in silence, arranging the delicate blue flowers into a simple yet elegant bouquet. Rowan would occasionally glance at her, as if searching for something. Lila, too, found herself glancing his way, though she quickly turned her attention back to the flowers, not wanting to linger too long on the complexity of the moment. "Forget-me-not," Rowan murmured. "What does it mean?" Lila looked at the tiny blooms in her hands, her fingers lightly tracing the petals. "Memories you want to keep. Feelings you don't want to forget." Rowan's eyes softened as he watched her work. "Seems like that's what I need right now." Lila stopped for a moment, setting the flowers down gently. "We all have things we want to hold on to, even if they hurt." Rowan's gaze lingered on her, and for the first time, Lila felt a crack in the walls she had carefully built around herself. There was something about the way he looked at her, vulnerable, yet so human, that made her feel less alone in her own silence. "Maybe we're all just trying to find a way to forget the wrong things," Rowan said, his voice softer now, as though he were speaking to himself as much as to her. Lila nodded, unable to find the right words to answer. They both sat there for a while, surrounded by the delicate blooms, each lost in their own thoughts, but somehow not feeling as alone as they had before.